The Shadow King said to the girl, "You are not forgotten. You are the beginning of legends." Whispers in the void. The dust clouds of Helios 9 swirled crimson and gold around Nyx Valori's expedition suit as she carefully brushed away centuries of sediment from the strange hieroglyphs. Her heart pounded against her ribs. This discovery could redefine everything known about the precursor civilization that had vanished from the galaxy 10,000 years ago. Lyra scanned sequence Delta 7, she murmured into her comm. Focus on the spiral patterns. Her expedition drone hummed in acknowledgement, its crystalline sensors casting blue light over the ancient wall. The ruins stretched around her, half buried in rust-colored soil, magnificent even in their decay. Enormous curved spires of opalescent material jutted from the ground like the ribs of some cosmic leviathan. Analysis complete, Lyra's synthetic voice replied. Translation matrix at 32% confidence. Recurring phrase detected. The void speaks through chosen vessels. Nyx frowned, pushing a strand of silver-streaked black hair from her face. That's oddly specific for a dead language. 3 standard months she'd been on this desolate rock at the edge of charted space, operating on a research grant that barely covered her oxygen reserves. The Stellaris Academy had nearly laughed her credentials away when she'd proposed that the precursors hadn't simply died out, they had transformed into something else entirely. Her fingers traced a symbol that resembled a spiral folding in on itself, endlessly recursive. Without warning, the pattern illuminated beneath her touch, pulsing with soft violet light. What the Nyx jerked back, but too late. The light traveled up her arm like liquid lightning, painless but unmistakably alive. The entire chamber awakened, symbols igniting in sequence, casting eerie shadows across the ancient hall. In the center of the room, the floor split open with the precision of engineered machinery, revealing a pedestal that rose smoothly upward. Atop it sat a small object, a crystalline spiral no larger than her palm, suspended in a field of humming energy. "Lyra, are you recording this?" Nyx whispered, approaching cautiously. Static was her only answer, all systems had gone dead. Something compelled her forward, scientific curiosity, perhaps, or something deeper she couldn't name. When her fingers closed around the spiral, the universe seemed to hold its breath. "You are not what was expected," a voice like the memory of thunder whispered directly into her mind. "But perhaps you are what is needed." Nyx staggered, visions flooding her consciousness, stars being born and dying, civilizations rising and falling, patterns of existence repeating across eons. And through it all, the spiral, always turning, always remembering. When she came back to herself, she was kneeling on the stone floor, the artifact clutched against her chest. Lyra hovered nearby, systems reactivated. "Dr. Valari," the drone reported with mechanical concern, "you experienced a temporal anomaly of approximately 17 minutes 12 seconds. Nyx blinked. What? "You touched the object and ceased responding. Biometrics indicated altered consciousness patterns consistent with deep REM sleep, but you remained upright." She stared at the spiral in her palm. It appeared dormant now, just a beautifully crafted relic of polished crystal and an unknown metal that shimmered with faint iridescence. "Lyra," she said carefully, "pack up our equipment, we're leaving. The expedition is scheduled for another 16 days. Change of plans." The journey back to her landing site took twice as long as it should have. Nyx couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, not by anything physical but by the planet itself. The artifact remained silent in her pack, but its presence weighed on her awareness like gravity. Her small research vessel, the Athena's Folly, sat where she'd left it, its weathered hull collecting the perpetual red dust of Helios 9. As she approached, however, she noticed something wrong. The entry hatch was open. Nyx froze, reaching for the compact pulse pistol at her hip. Lyra scanned for life forms. One humanoid detected within the vessel, armed. Perfect, she'd left civilization precisely to avoid complications like theft and piracy. The research outposts at the galaxy's edge were notorious for attracting those running from something, law enforcement, debts, or worse. "Identify yourself," she called, taking cover behind a fallen column. A figure emerged from her ship, tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that might have been handsome if not for the jagged scar running from temple to jaw. His hands were raised, showing empty palms, though Nyx noted the blaster holstered at his side. "Name's Thorn," he said, voice rough like he didn't use it often. "Transport pilot, your emergency beacon activated 6 hours ago." "I didn't activate any beacons." "Something did," he shrugged. "Union protocol requires response to all signals in uncharted space." Nyx narrowed her eyes. His uniform, if it was one, bore no insignia of the Galactic Union. "You're no Union pilot." A flicker of amusement crossed his face. Perceptive, let's say I borrowed the ship. You're a thief. I prefer acquisition specialist. He took a step forward, then stopped when she raised her weapon. Look, lady, I'm not here for trouble, but something on this rock is broadcasting a signal that's got half the sector's bounty hunters and corporate mercs scrambling. Whatever you found, it's important to someone with deep pockets. Nyx felt the weight of the artifact in her pack. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. Thorne's eyes, a startling amber, assessed her with uncomfortable precision. That's why a research archaeologist with a grant that wouldn't cover fuel for a shuttle is digging around ruins nobody cares about, right? Before she could respond, the ground trembled beneath them. In the distance, a plume of dust rose against the crimson sky. That would be the competition arriving, Thorne said grimly. Less friendly than me, I guarantee. Nyx made a split-second decision. If I let you help me, what's your cut? 50% of whatever you're selling. I'm not selling anything, this is a scientific discovery. Thorne laughed, a sound like stones grinding together. Everything's for sale to someone. His expression sobered. But I'll settle for passage off this dust ball and away from people who want to shoot me. Another tremor closer this time. The whine of engines cut through the thin atmosphere. Deal, Nyx said. They made it to Thorne's ship, a battered but surprisingly well-maintained transport vessel called the Wayward, just as the first ships appeared on the horizon. Sleek, black, and unmistakably military in design. Friends of yours? Nyx asked as they strapped in. If they were, we'd already be dead. Thorne's hands flew over the controls, bringing engines to life. Those are hegemony enforcers, not known for asking questions before they start shooting. The Wayward lurched upward, breaking atmosphere with bone-jarring speed. Thorne piloted with the casual confidence of someone who had outrun trouble many times before. Once they reached orbit, Nyx allowed herself to breathe. The hegemony, they're a corporate collective. What would they want with archaeological finds? You tell me, Thorne glanced at her pack. What exactly did you find down there? Before she could answer, the ship's proximity alarms blared. 3 hegemony vessels had appeared, cutting off their exit vector. Unidentified vessel, a cold voice announced over the comm. Power down and prepare to be boarded by authority of the Hegemony Council. Thorne cursed, hands dancing over controls. Hold on, Professor, this might get interesting. What followed was a masterclass in evasive piloting. The Wayward, despite its appearance, moved like a predator, slipping between laser fire and pursuer ships with impossible grace. They skimmed the atmosphere, using the planet's gravity well to slingshot toward the system's asteroid belt. When they finally broke free, leaving their pursuers disabled but alive, Nyx realized she'd been clutching the artifact through her pack the entire time. It hummed against her palm, warm and somehow comforting. You want to tell me what that is? Thorne asked quietly, nodding toward her hand. Nyx hesitated, then carefully removed the spiral from her pack. In the artificial light of the ship, it seemed to capture and refract every photon, creating miniature galaxies within its structure. I don't know exactly, she admitted, but when I touched it, I saw things, heard a voice. Instead of the skepticism she expected, Thorne's expression grew solemn. The precursor spiral, it's supposed to be a myth. You know about this. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a tattoo on his forearm, the same spiral pattern rendered in deep blue ink. Let's just say you're not the first person to hear the whispers. His eyes met hers. But you might be the first it's chosen in a very long time. The spiral in her palm pulsed once, as if in agreement. Chosen for what? Nyx asked, a chill running down her spine despite the warmth of the artifact. That, said Thorne, setting coordinates for somewhere deep in uncharted space, is what we need to find out. As the Wayward jumped to hyperspace, Nyx Valeri stared at the ancient relic, wondering if she had discovered her life's work, or signed their death warrants. Beyond the viewports, stars stretched into luminous streams, carrying them toward answers neither was certain they wanted to find. Echoes of tomorrow. The Wayward emerged from hyperspace with a shudder, its hull groaning like an old beast awakening from slumber. Before them stretched a vast nebula, clouds of cosmic dust illuminated in breathtaking hues of emerald and violet, punctuated by the brilliance of newborn stars. The Veil, Thorne announced, his voice uncharacteristically reverent. Most navigation systems mark it as impassable, perfect place to hide if you're an ancient cult that doesn't want to be found. Nyx leaned forward, mesmerized by the spectacle. The spiral artifact in her palm pulsed in rhythm with the distant stellar flares growing warmer. How do we find them in all that? We don't, they find us. As if summoned by his words, the ship's communications array crackled to life. No voice came through, only a haunting melody that made the hairs on Nyx's neck stand on end. "That's our invitation," Thorn said, programming a new course heading. The Wayward plunged into the nebula, instruments flickering as external sensors struggled to penetrate the cosmic cloud. For nearly an hour, they navigated blind, guided only by the occasional pulse of the coordinates embedded in the mysterious signal. Without warning, the nebula thinned, revealing a massive structure floating in the void, a space station unlike any Nyx had ever seen. It resembled a series of interlocking rings, constantly rotating around a luminous core. The architecture mirrored the precursor ruins she'd explored, but intact, alive with energy and purpose. "The Veiled Conclave," Thorn said quietly, "keepers of the forgotten ways." "You've been here before," Nyx realized, studying his expression. He didn't answer, focusing instead on docking procedures. They were met in the hangar by three figures in flowing robes that seemed to capture and bend light around them. Their faces were concealed behind masks of polished material that resembled mother of pearl, featureless save for two almond-shaped openings where eyes should be. "The Wayward returns," the central figure spoke, voice neither male nor female, "with the Echo Bearer." Thorn bowed his head slightly. "Oracle Ven," the spiral called. "And you answered, Thorn of the Stars, as was foretold." The masked figure turned to Nyx. "You carry a burden you do not understand, Seeker." Nyx stepped forward, refusing to be intimidated. "Then help me understand it. What is this artifact? Why did it choose me? And why is the hegemony willing to kill for it?" The Oracle's mask tilted slightly. "So many questions, yet you have not asked the most important one. Which is who you truly are." Before Nyx could respond, the artifact in her hand flared brilliantly, illuminating the hangar. The sensation that had begun on Helios 9 returned, consciousness expanding beyond physical boundaries, mind touching something vast and ancient. When her vision cleared, the hangar was gone. She stood in a circular chamber with walls of flowing water sealing open to the stars. The three oracles surrounded her, Thorn nowhere to be seen. "Where is?" "He walks his own path of remembrance," Oracle Ven said. "Now you must walk yours." Another robed figure approached, carrying a basin of what appeared to be liquid starlight. "The waters of memory," they explained. "To drink is to remember what was forgotten." Nyx hesitated only briefly before taking the offered vessel. The liquid tasted of nothing, yet somehow contained every flavor she had ever experienced. It burned cold down her throat, settling in her chest like frozen fire. Visions assaulted her, not disjointed images as before, but a coherent narrative spanning millennia. She saw the precursors at the height of their civilization, masters of matter and energy. Witnessed their discovery of the space between dimensions, the void that connected all things. Watched as they evolved beyond physical form, becoming beings of pure consciousness. But not all made the transition. Some remained tied to material existence, forming the first conclave. Others rejected the change entirely, clinging to power and physical form. These became the ancestors of the hegemony, using stolen precursor technology to build their empire across the stars. Through generations, the conclave protected the knowledge of the ascension, waiting for the time when humanity would be ready to follow the precursor's path. The spiral artifacts were keys, conscious tools meant to identify those whose minds could bridge the gap between physical and non-physical existence. Commander Riven alone seemed unaffected, her face contorted with rage. "What is this?" "Recognition," Oracle Ven answered, physical form now a swirling constellation of light. "The spiral touches all minds, revealing their true nature. Those who cling to domination cannot embrace transcendence." The commander lunged for Nyx, but Thorn intercepted her, the two falling into a brutal struggle. Despite his skill, Riven's enhanced strength gave her the advantage. She pinned him to the floor, drawing a wicked-looking blade. "Your conclave dies today," she hissed. Nyx felt power surge through her, not violent but transformative. Understanding flooded her consciousness. The spiral wasn't a weapon or a tool, it was a key to unlocking potential that existed in all sentient life. With perfect clarity, she knew what to do. "Stop," she commanded, and reality itself seemed to pause. She approached Riven, who struggled against an invisible force holding her in place. The commander's eyes widened with fear as Nyx reached out, placing her palm against Riven's forehead. "See what you fight against," Nyx whispered. Connection formed mind to mind, past to future. Nyx shared the visions, the understanding, the purpose of the ascension, not conquest or power but unity. Evolution beyond the limitations of physical form. When she withdrew her hand, Riven collapsed, gasping, "What did you do to me?" "Showed you the truth." Nyx helped Thorn to his feet, then turned to the glowing forms of the oracles. There doesn't need to be conflict. The path is open to all who choose it. Oracle Ven's luminous form pulsed in what might have been approval. And so the Echo-Bearer fulfills her purpose, not to divide but to unite, not to end but to begin. In the days that followed, the Conclave opened its doors for the first time in millennia. Knowledge long hidden was shared freely with those ready to receive it. The hegemony, its leadership shaken by Riven's experience, entered tentative negotiations. Nick spent hours in the station's archives, learning the full history of her lineage, the purpose of the spirals, the nature of the ascension. Thorn remained by her side, his cynicism gradually giving way to cautious hope. So, he said one cycle, as they watched a distant supernova through the observation dome, still think you're just an archaeologist. Nick smiled, the spiral artifact, now worn as a pendant, warm against her skin. I am an archaeologist, just with a slightly expanded job description. Leading humanity to its next evolutionary stage is slightly expanded. Someone has to do it. She turned to him, serious now. You know you don't have to stay, your debt to the Conclave is paid. Thorn's amber eyes held hers. What if I want to see how the story ends? It doesn't end, Nyx replied, taking his hand. The spiral pulsed between them, connecting past and future in an endless cycle of becoming. That's the whole point. From the observation dome, the nebula stretched before them like a road of stars, not an ending but a beginning. Not forgotten but remembered. The first chapter in a legend still being written across the cosmic tapestry, one spiral turn at a time.